Did you prefer holding the title or chasing the title? Because I know it makes sense to prefer holding the title, but chasing the title is also from a wrestler. It's got to be a great. The fans are salivating for you to get it. Is it better to hold it or chase it?
Man, they're both good, but what are you better at? And as I had Undertaker on Broken Skull Sessions, I love being the world champion just because it's quite an accomplishment. But I think I was better on the chase, and Undertaker felt he was better on the chase as well.
I wonder how many people feel that because it really feels like a lot of people feel that. Just and I have no basis for that. I haven't talked to a lot of wrestlers, but it does feel like I don't know. It seems like the hottest part of a guy's act is when he's on the chase, and it's harder to keep that up. Go ahead.
But I would say Ric Flair was better as the champ.
That's certainly right. Well, because you picture you said it right on Broken Skull Sessions. Because when you picture the Undertaker, you don't picture him wearing a belt. When you picture Ric Flair, you picture him wearing that big ass gold belt every single time. And there are some guys you picture holding the belt, some guys you don't. I got to be honest though with you. I do picture you holding that Smoking Skull belt. I picture you holding that coming out with a wild crowd.
And I will say it was a good look. People liked it. They enjoyed me being the champion. It felt warranted. I was putting in the work, trying to have the right kind of matches. And I'll leave it at that. But that it was a hell of a symbol. The BMF of the WWE, the toughest SOB in the ring, carrying that gold down to the ring with that music was quite a look, and it was quite a feeling, and it was a hell of a visual.
Couple more questions. I'll let you get out of here. We're talking to, of course, the great Stone Cold Steve Austin. Straight Up Steve Austin, Season 2, USA Network, every Monday night, 11 p.m. Eastern Pacific on USA Network. Check it out. It's a great show. You talked about the match with Shawn, and he had the back issues and other issues in 98, whatever. But you just acted like you didn't really like it. Are there any matches you look back on your career and wish you could redo?
Well, I wanted WrestleMania 19 with The Rock, which is my final match, to be a little bit better or a little bit more elaborate than it was. But, I'd spent the night before in the emergency room of the hospital, and, we put together that match, and I've watched it back maybe 2 times. What I remember, it was better than I remembered, but not as good as it could have been. Like a 17 was kind of a classic, almost in the vein of a Steamboat Savage. Although very different because that was an awesome match. So maybe redo 19.
Well, having watched that match at 19 at least 275 times, I got to tell you, it was pretty damn good. WrestleMania 19 as a whole, very underrated. I loved that match. But again, if anybody in the world is comparing it to 17, I mean, 17 was like the peak of Superman and Batman getting together. You and The Rock. I mean, you guys were just. I think that's one of the greatest WrestleMania matches of all time too. Of course, that was the heel turn, but the roof still blew off the building, and it was still just an incredible match.
And and on a note, if I could go back and redo, the match at SummerSlam where I got dropped on my head, not because of the injury, but man, me and Owen were having a hell of a damn match,
Mm-hmm.
and we probably had about 5 or 7 more minutes to go, and then that happened, so it kind of ruined the match. It kind of well, ultimately forced me into retirement, but it also forced me into a brawling style, which enhanced the character. So there's a lot of different things that came out of that match, but it'd been cool just to finish the match like we wanted to, and both shake hands afterwards and say, God damn, that was good.
It really is remarkable that you broke your neck in that match and came out hotter than you went in. I don't know of anybody else's career where they got hurt on that big stage like that, and then a month later you're stunning Vince in the Garden, and the shit's going from 9.5 to 11 just like that. A couple more questions. You talked about Undertaker. You did Broken Skull Sessions with him. I think you've done 3 episodes with him, or you did one, and then at the end of his career, you did that big long one, which was fantastic. So he just retired. You saw it at Survivor Series. You asked him on Broken Skull Sessions what was he thinking when he retired. What were you thinking watching The Undertaker go out like that? He had 30 years on top, which is incredible, unbelievable. What were you thinking watching this guy go out on top of the business?
It's time.
Yeah.
It's time. I'd talk with him, and Mark and I, we rarely talk. We've been talking on Broken Skull Sessions, but he knew it was time, and he was satisfied and he was happy. He was completely fulfilled. And so that's what I thought, like, hey, you know what? More power to you. Congrats. Congrats on a hell of a run. Probably, one of the single greatest careers in the history of the business.
Certainly, I can't. 30 years, always near the top of the card. Of course, you had a great career, Rock. Pretty much everybody from your era you can put down as having a remarkable career. I just have one question about your era in wrestling. Whose finishing move was the worst to take? When you talk about, you had the tombstone pile driver from Undertaker, you had the rock bottom, which looked like, kind of taking a nap sometimes. You had, I wouldn't want Mick Foley sticking his hands in my mouth. A lot of them, I certainly wouldn't want Rikishi sticking his asshole on my nose, even though that wasn't his finisher. What was the worst finisher to take?
Because I was so hot back in the day, I didn't take a whole lot of finishes.
Oh, that's a good point.
But, to your point, and Taker was always cool with that. I never had to take the sting face. Foley got me a couple times with the mandible claw. And if it was anybody other than Mick, well, now in 2021, you just think germs everywhere, but you don't really think like that, back in the day. But anytime someone's sticking their finger in your mouth or a sock, that's not great. But shit, everybody loved Mick to death. So I can't say that I didn't enjoy or couldn't stand anybody's finish.
So there was the Zamboni, there was the monster truck, there was the beer truck, there was the cement truck. It goes on and on and on of things you did to terrorize Vince McMahon. Did you ever drive something that never made it to TV? Did you ever try something that just didn't quite get there, or you always went balls out and just did it?
No, I've always had the ability to, because I've always driven machinery as a kid growing up in South Texas, from working on a freight dock and driving forklifts and tractors and hauling hay. That's kind of built in my DNA. The one thing that I wasn't able to drive was when I had the buried alive match with Undertaker. They wanted me to bury him with that backhoe, and I got on it, and the hydraulics were so severe that I couldn't quite get them delicate enough. I would have demolished the Undertaker had I driven that backhoe, and I flat out just said I won't do it, and that's why they had the driver came in there. So the backhoe is the only thing that I couldn't drive.
I mean, those are tough. I mean, my uncle drove one for years, and I still don't think he got it right. So last couple of questions here. I got to get to what I want to talk about before we get out of here, because I know I'll never have Stone Cold Steve Austin again. Did you ever laugh? I know you said everything's business, but did you ever give Rock the stunner? And then when he did the exaggerated fall afterwards, did you ever look at him like, all right, that's a little bit much?
Never. Man, I loved it the way he would cascade off them damn ropes all over the ring. I mean, because he made it a thing before it ever. I mean, because no one ever did it like that. Scott Hall could get that great height, and then he'd come down, but
Kurt Angle did as well. Kurt Angle was very good at taking it.
Yeah, but Rock was the OG of doing the crazy bump for it. And because of our chemistry, because of the nature of our characters, and because it was him, it was money.